Hello and thanks for joining me. Today I want to look deeper into the Inanna story and to also provide you with an experience similar but won't be quite as drastic as Inanna's descent into the underworld, and this is going to be done, or I'm going to guide you through it in order for you to experience the feelings of rebirth in whichever way is best for you, with whatever you want to release so that you can rebirth. So I'm going to begin by explaining the Inanna story and going into the details of it, and then we're going to go through our own experience with the story. So the Inanna story is actually a poem that was written, they say it was written between 2250 BCE to 2025 CE, which is 4,275 years ago to 4,310 years ago. So the Inanna story is over 4,000 years old, and some scholars actually date the Inanna story to 3,500 BCE, based on the cuneiform script, so the way the story was written. So it's actually a poem, and that poem, it is a story that is based on the map of the way Venus moves in the sky and in the universe, and the path that Venus takes over a period of time that creates the rose symbol as Venus moves between the Earth and the Sun. So the Inanna story was written around 4,000 years ago onto clay tablets in Mesopotamia. The Inanna story predates the Bible, and it predates the Bible by more than 1,500 years to 3,000 years. The Inanna story gives us an idea of the culture and the beliefs of the people at the time, and it teaches us what the people believed at the time about divinity, God, the cycles of nature, and the afterlife. Inanna is the Sumerian goddess of love, war, and fertility, and her story is one of the earliest recorded texts in human history. The story of Inanna is told in a series of verses. It was written by Enheduanna, who was a high priestess of the moon god Nana and daughter of King Sargon of Akkad. And Enheduanna was one of the first known authors of a human transcript. So the priestess of Nana, who wrote the poem of Inanna, she was one of the first humans to write something down that we now have as a historical record. And Enheduanna was a priestess in Ur, where Inanna was one of the primary deities worshipped. And eventually the Sumerian goddess Inanna and the Akkadian Ishtar were conflated into one goddess and worshipped across the entire region of Mesopotamia. The story of Inanna's descent is an initiation and a rite of passage. Through the story, Inanna was initiated into faith and trust. For ourselves, if we compare the Inanna story to the journey of a blooming rose, the story of Inanna would be the point at which we're at full bloom. On paper, we have everything that we could want and everything should be perfect, but we want more. And it's because Inanna wants more that she decides to take the journey to the Netherworld, because she wants to become queen of the Netherworld, or the underworld. So this is for us like being that rose that is in full bloom, looking perfect, looks beautiful, but something's not quite right and we actually want to change. And this is the point where we descend and we pick apart the parts of ourselves that no longer serve us or that are holding us back, and we release those, and we die a death of the ego, and then we rise up rebirthed. In some of the stories, Inanna descends to the underworld with the 7 divine powers, represented by the things that she puts on for the journey. This state, she took the 7 divine powers, she collected the divine powers and grasped them in her hand. So in the poem it states she put a turban headgear for the open country on her head. So she puts on a turban headgear for the open country. She's preparing herself for this journey. So she doesn't just go out to descend into the netherworld, she actually prepares herself, and she prepares herself in the best way that she knows how to, bearing in mind that Inanna is already queen. She is classed as queen of the upper world, so queen of the heaven and queen of earth, but she now wants to be queen of the underworld. So she prepares herself to go for this journey, knowing that it is going to be a test for her to even be able to make the journey and return from the netherworld as queen of the netherworld. So she puts the turban headgear on. She puts on a lapis lazuli bead necklace. She puts twin egg-shaped beads on her breasts. She wears a parlour dress, the garment of ladyship, and she puts on the mascara, and the mascara is called Let a Man Come, Let Him Come. So she's looking to use all of her feminine powers to get what she wants. There's a lot of mention of let a man come, let him come, and what it's saying is that she knows how to use the things that she's naturally gifted with, or she has been given through life experience and through tuning in to the divine energy. She knows how to use these to get what she wants. So she's putting on this mascara, so even if she in the netherworld meets a man, she has this mascara that is supposedly going to sway him to do what she wants. She puts on a breastplate of pectoral, which was also called Come Man Come, and she put on a gold ring. She held a lapis lazuli measuring rod and measuring line in her hand, and the measuring rod and line represents Inanna's ability to control the forces in the netherworld. So the measuring rod represents protection and power and cosmic order. The measuring rod represents Inanna's ability to move in and to survive the netherworld or the underworld. And measuring rods have also been used in the past to ward off evil or dead spirits. As when we die, we are measured, and it is one of the last things that are done. They measure the body. So the measuring rod also represents for the holder of it the knowledge that we are alive and the power that we have by being alive, and it distinguishes between the dead and the living. So Inanna was queen of heaven and earth, but she also wanted to be queen of the underworld. She had to go through and do a lot to be able to come out of the underworld alive, and the poem and the verses describe all of that preparation that I've just briefly explained to you. It goes into exactly what she does in order to prepare before she goes to the netherworld, because the netherworld is classed as a place you go when you die. This is where the dead spirits go. So she's already queen of the celestial realm, queen of the earthly realm, but she wants it all. She wants to be queen of the underworld as well. But nobody returns from the underworld, because this is a place of death. So nobody returns from the underworld unscathed. She tries to set it up so that she can return. So she appeals to the gods and says, if I don't come back in 3 days, request that I am sent back from the netherworld. Request for me to be sent back. tell them who I am, tell them that I'm needed, a request for me to be released from the Netherworld, because she knows that there is a possibility that she will never return from this Netherworld, but it is an initiation that she's willing to go through. So no one leaves the underworld alive, and the story of Inanna and her counterpart Dumuzi is a version of the ancient story of the goddess being the initiator. Dumuzi is the god of livestock and vegetation, and the story is the story of nature, of death and rebirth. Inanna sends Dumuzi to the underworld in the end in her place. This represents the autumn and the winter months when the grains die, or it can also represent the summer period if you're in the east where everything dries up. The Inanna and Dumuzi story is associated with the harvest. It's also associated with springtime and also with the death life cycle. Dumuzi produces date palm, so that's Dumuzi's role. He produces date palm. He's the god of vegetation and livestock, as mentioned. And Inanna protects the granaries and dates, so the two of them together, they produce fertility, they produce abundance. Dumuzi's death represents the scarcity of water in the drought season in Africa. And it's during the dry seasons that Dumuzi is said to be in the underworld. So Dumuzi is Inanna's counterpart, it's her husband. And when she goes to the underworld, she expects everybody in her life, including her husband, to be worrying about her, to be thinking about her, to be bringing her name to the gods, so that she is returned, because she is classed as priceless and a jewel and needed in the celestial and earthly realm. And she also wants to have control of all of the realms. So she expects everybody to be pining and waiting for her and missing her. And Dumuzi, who is a fisherman, he actually enjoys himself when she's gone, and that's the reason that it's sort of implied that she sends him to the underworld, because he was having a great time without her. So let's just look a little bit more at Dumuzi. He was a fisherman. It says he was sat on the throne of Uruk. He was the fourth king of the first dynasty of Uruk. Uruk is known as Warka today. It is east of the Euphrates River in Iraq. So Dumuzi is a deity from Iraq. All his story surrounds the Euphrates River in Iraq. In 1849, William Kenneth Loftus visited Uruk and had identified it as the second city of Nimrod. And scholars note that Uruk is the biblical Erech in Genesis 10:10, the second city founded by Nimrod. So within this story, we are getting a picture of what they believed in places like Egypt, Sudan, and all the way up into Iraq and surrounding areas, and it's what they believed before the Abrahamic religions came into domination. So now, looking at it from that perspective and just taking in all the information from the verses of Inanna, which I will supply for you to actually have a look at the story yourself, we're going to go into how we can use this for spiritual alchemy to raise our consciousness and to become better people, and to how we can create change using this process and using this story as a metaphor for life. So the seven powers are the protection that Inanna has put on before her descent to the underworld. So when Inanna tries to enter the underworld, or the Netherworld. Her sister Ereshkigal is actually queen of the underworld, and Ereshkigal says that Inanna just can't go straight through to the underworld. She has to go through each of the gates individually, and there are 7 gates, and the 7 gates represent an initiation in and of itself. So each of the gates is an initiation, and there are 7 of them. Now, in my Rose Kundalini modality, we're going to go 7 levels down and clear distortions connected to our ancestors and the underworld and things that are connected to the underworld. So we, in Rose Kundalini, will go 7 levels down. Also, we'd work with the 7 chakras, and we'll go 7 levels up as well. But this story of Inanna is a way to look into our subconscious and into the parts of the ego that may be trying to run our lives, so that we can release those and become the highest versions of ourselves while we're still here on earth. So for Inanna, the 7 gates are the 7 gates that she must pass through to get to the Netherworld or the underworld, where her sister Ereshkigal is queen of the underworld. So we have this story of Inanna wanting to be queen of the Netherworld, which means she must go there and she must survive it and come back, so that she will then be called Queen of the Netherworld or Queen of the Underworld. And that's just like the story of Persephone and Hades, except Persephone was actually abducted by Hades and taken to the Underworld. But when Persephone resurrects or rebirths from the Underworld, she is then called Queen of the Underworld. So if you can go to the Underworld and survive it, and come back, you have conquered it, and then you then become queen of that underworld. As they rebirth, so when you go to the underworld, you experience a death, and as you rebirth, you rise and resurrect. And this is reflected in the cycles of nature, the movement of the sun and the moon, the waxing and waning of the sun and moon across the horizon, or the horizon. The ancients based their philosophies on the cycles of nature. When the sun, which in Egypt was represented by Ra in his boat travelling from the east to the west to the east, in the east the sun rises. Ra at that point, who is classed as a sun god in Egypt, Ra is in his full glory as the sun rises in the east. It's the point where Ra is setting out. It's similar to the hero's journey. He's full of life. This is the point where, when we want to start something new, it's the point of the full bloomed rose, as I mentioned. When you're setting out, everything looks fine, you're happy, but then you feel that something's missing, and then you go through this hero's journey. So these are all connected. So when we take it back to Ra, when Ra sets out in the east, he travels down to the south, to his peak, to the knit and grit of what he's about. And as he moves from the south to the west and then the north, this is the journey of the sun. It's the journey of the sun, the sun that we see in the sky. It's also the journey of the sun that we call Christ. And it's also the journey of Osiris when he is dismembered by Set, and then Isis and Nephthys collect the body parts, and Isis uses magic and all of her skills to bring Osiris back to life. This is the same journey that is just shown in stories and mythology based on the sun and the moon. So this is the journey of the physical sun in the sky. When we get to night time, that's classed as when the sun goes to the underworld. This would be where Ra goes to the underworld, and he has to conquer or fight the snake, which I believe is called Apep. As we move from the north back to the east, the sun is reborn. And then the cycle starts again. This is shown in mythology and spirituality and religion. The same story playing out across cultures. This is the hero's journey, being killed or beaten, killed or taken apart, hung up on a cross, hung up on a hook. The point that the old self dies, and then the person or the deity is resurrected or rises again. It's the life-death-life cycle. Each initiation through a gateway is a life-death-life cycle, where you begin with an intention or a desire and begin a journey to attain it, and then you go through an initiation. Because if you're going after a goal or you have a desire, then there is usually a cost to that and a price that you have to pay. Everything has a price, and if you want to go through an initiation or you want to up level, then you will have a price to pay for that, and that's shown in the story. Inanna is described as, by her clergy, Inanna is described as Queen of Heaven and Earth, but Inanna wants to be Queen of it all, Heaven, Earth, the Underworld, and so her initiation begins. So as we first learned, she prepared herself to go on this journey. She also petitions the gods to fight on her behalf, to plead for her to be released from the Netherworld if she's not back within 3 days. And the 3 days is also the same time that Christ, after he was killed, he was put in the cave, and then he resurrected after the 3 days. After the 3 days, Inanna also resurrects from the underworld. No coincidence, in my opinion. So, as Inanna goes to the Netherworld or Underworld, first of all, she's met by a gatekeeper who asks who she is. And then the gatekeeper speaks to Inanna's sister, who is Ereshkigal. And Ereshkigal is Queen of the Underworld. And she's Inanna's sister as well. And Inanna's sister states, she can enter the Netherworld, but she must give up one of her 7 powers at each gate before the final entrance. So at gate 1, Inanna must give up her crown. This crown is her crown of divinity, her royal status, and her heavenly status, and her rulership. At gate 2, Inanna must give up her lapis lazuli necklace and her connection to the higher realms, and her ability to receive and communicate with the divine and divine spiritual realm and her spiritual team. At gate 3, Inanna must give up the double strand of beads from her breast, a heart adornment which represented her emotional protection and her value of what was sacred. At gate 4, Inanna must give up the breastplate called Come and Come. The breastplate represented her power of attraction, her ability to manipulate using her feminine powers, her ability to manipulate men to get what she wanted, and her magnetism, her charm, her cunningness, and her ability to manifest. The breastplate also represents her identity and her sexuality and sexual prowess. At gate 5, Inanna must give up her golden ring from her hand. This represented her power of intention, her magical authority. And then at gate 6, Inanna gives up her lapis lazuli measuring rod and line, and the measuring rod and line represent her role as judge and her control of fate and her status as a cosmic weaver. And then at the final gate, Inanna gives up the garment of ladyship from her body. So the garment of ladyship is the final symbol of her power and identity. Once she gives these things up, and she gives up this final garment, the garment of ladyship, she's then standing there naked with no power of her own. Once Inanna has given up her 7 divine powers, she's killed and she's hung up. And she dies for 3 days. And then one of the gods creates these other beings that travel to the Netherworld, and they give Inanna the gifts of life, the food and water of life that brings her back to life. And then she goes to leave the Netherworld, but the demons or the spirits in the Netherworld say that you can't come to the Netherworld and just leave. If you come to the Netherworld, you have to stay here. So if you want to go, you need to send someone in your place. And as she leaves, they follow her. So these demons follow her, looking for the spirit that they can take into the Netherworld in her place. And they try and take people close to her. And she's travelling home, and the people that they try and take are the people who have done everything that Inanna has asked them to do once she's away, to make sure that she returns. So she doesn't allow them to go, and she gets all the way home, and she finally sees Dumuzi having a great time. This is her husband. He's not missed her. He's enjoying her not being there. He hasn't done any of the things that she said to allow her to come back, and she allows Dumuzi to be taken to the Netherworld. And Dumuzi then appeals to another god and begs to be released from these demons that are consuming him in the Netherworld. And he asks for his hands and his feet to be changed into snakes, so that these demons or spirits can't get a hold of him and can't grab him and consume him. And he's granted his wish, where he's given hands and feet of snakes, and the demons can't catch him because he's too slippery. But this story just shows that Inanna had set her mind on exactly what she wanted. She hadn't really thought of the consequences or the price that she would have to pay for it. And that's the same with ourselves. Sometimes we have a desire, we want something, but we don't always think about the cost the cost of getting that thing that we want. So now we're just going to do just a short little exercise just to bring to our attention some of these things that have been mentioned in the story of Inanna. So now I'd like you to just take a few slow, deep breaths, breathing deep down into your belly area. And with the breaths, just allow yourself to get into a relaxed position and allow your mind to just slow down. And then you can begin to visualize roots growing from your feet and traveling deep, deep down into the earth. And just see yourself being connected now by your roots to the crystalline core of the earth. And as your roots grow deep down into the earth, they anchor you here on the physical realm. And just feel the roots that have grown from your feet and travelled deep down into the earth. Feel them actually nourishing and strengthening you. You can even visualise a red liquid light travelling up through those roots and connecting in with your root chakra and your womb and your sacral chakra, and allow yourself to just be nourished by the earth. If you can, and you're in a safe place and you're able to, you can actually place your feet onto the ground and just give your feet a rub against the ground so you can feel that magnetic charge as the earth sends its energy up through your body. And now I would like you to just visualise a golden light just above your head, and just see yourself like how they often depict these ancient ascended masters with the golden orb around their head. And with your eyes closed, I want you to just imagine that you can create a golden light. It's beaming out from the back of your head, and it's rising up and it's creating a dome around your head So see this dome of golden light now around your head, like the Ascended Masters, and then see this golden light reaching all the way up and up and up and up and further up and beaming all the way up to the sky. So now you have this golden light that is coming from the back of your head and it's reaching all the way up to the sky. And you have your roots that are going deep down into the earth. And then again, just tune in to your breath, slowing it down, relaxing, releasing anything from your past. In this journey, we're going to take a little bit of an Inanna journey. I'm going to try and keep it a little bit short, although we could do a longer one at some point. I'm going to keep this one short, but I'm just going to allow you to experience and to visualise in your mind's eye what it might look like for you to actually die a death of the old self and to rebirth as a new self. So we'll just go back to seeing that golden halo around your head and the golden light beaming all the way up to the sky. And as you see this, see yourself being nourished by this golden light coming back twice as strong and entering through the top of your head and actually through the back of your head as well at your medulla point. Feel your life force energy being nourished by this golden light. At gate 1, Inanna had to remove her crown, and the crown was a symbol of letting go of the ego and status and the need for control. It's very easy in the world that we live in, that is a patriarchal society where it is all go, 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 do, achieve, achieve, achieve. It's so easy for us to fall into a place dictated by the ego where we need to feel that we're in authority and that we are in control. And this gateway, the first gateway where Inanna removes her crown, this is the gateway of letting go of that need to control. So just tune into your body and see if you can feel within your body anywhere where you're harbouring energy of a feeling of needing to be in control. And think about, what have you been trying so hard to control, and how has that been working for you? It takes so much energy to try and control things, but we're living in a world that is governed by universal laws, and we actually are a little bit limited to exactly what we can control. There's a higher force that is in control of everything, and there comes a point where we need to release our need to be in control. And where in your life do you need to release the need to be in control? And you'll know which area it is, because when you think of releasing that control, you'll actually feel elevated, you're going to feel lifted, and you're going to feel better, and it will feel like a weight off your shoulders when you know that you no longer need to try and force things and control something. Just think about where you need to release your need to control. With the Gateway 1, we're also looking at our desires to always be the one in charge, to be the one in control. And this is often connected to our fear of being perceived as weak. So with this crown, I want you to visualize yourself removing a crown from your head, a crown that either you put on your own head or someone put on there for you. It might be that you're always strong. It might be that you're the one that people go to when they need anything, whether it's money, support emotionally, or that you feel that you have to do something. You have to follow a spiritual path. You have to do something. That's a need for control. So just imagine taking off that crown, and in that crown you're taking off the desire to be in control. We're going to release that. We're going to do what we can, but we're going to know that we're not in control of everything. With your crown, you're also releasing your attachment to your social status, and this is a big one because it's so easy to get attached to the title that we claim, the title of your role, your job, your business, and even being a priestess. Now, I love the title of priestess, and I feel that I've always been a priestess, but I don't have to hold on to it that much. There's many different names, just like there's many different titles for the goddess. I love the name Rose Priestess, and I feel like a Rose Priestess, but I'm not going to hold on to that so tightly because I could be classed as anything. I could be classed as a channeler, an initiator, a healer. So the titles really don't matter, and the ability to understand that even without your title, you are still valid. That's what we're going to connect with as we've released that crown. We've released the need for external validation. We've released the need for somebody else to tell us that we're worthy. So with that crown, we're releasing the need to get permission from anybody else to feed our own ego, to make ourselves feel better. So just think about, where do you need to release your attachment to your social status? What part of your social status are you clinging on to so hard because it makes you feel that you've got power? It's driving your ego. I'm not talking about leaving your job or leaving your business, but I'm talking about detaching from the title and feeling better than the people because of the title, or just feeling that it gives you power, because a title won't give you power. Your actions will give you power. So I'm just going to ask you the questions now for all of these gateways, and as I ask you the questions, if you so wish, I would like you to remove in your mind's eye the garment or the item that Inanna removed in order for her to make the descent so that she can rebirth. So with your crown, as you've taken it off, you can now release perfectionism. We don't need perfectionism. There's nobody that's perfect. You can release the fear of failure. What has the fear of failure stopped you from doing, and what would you actually be able to do if you just release that fear of failure? And even if you're still afraid of failure, what would happen if you acted like you wasn't afraid of failure? How would that change the trajectory of your life? With the release of the crown, we can also release inflexibility in thinking. There is no one way, and things are not always black and white. There's grey and there's other colours in between. So where in your life do you need to release inflexibility in your thinking? And finally, when we release clinging to our social status, we release clinging to perfectionism. We release the need and the desire to always be in control, and we release the need for external validation, and release the need for over-identification with our job title or our role or our business. Then we now release our overemphasis on our achievements. So at the minute, just think about all of those things that you achieved, and just imagine for yourself that you didn't achieve them and you'd done something else. Even if you'd done nothing, you're still worthy. You don't have to prove that you're worthy of anything. And that all of society will find a way of telling you that you need to prove that you're worthy. But when you release that crown, you just take yourself out of the situation. You're not going to answer to people. You're not going to prove that you've earned a title, because you know you are the title. So we're going to release the overemphasis on achievements now. We're going to release the need for feeling that we have to show up in a certain way and prove to other people that we are worthy to be in their circle. We release that now. We don't need to be in anyone's circle because we are the circle. And just like Inanna, we step into our power and we own our own power. And we decide what we want and we're willing to pay the consequence to get it. We understand that everything is energy. And if we want to achieve something, there's going to be an exchange. If we want a rebirth and we want a change, we want to change the old and create something new. If we want that, we have to release the old. We can't take the old with us to create something new because then it's still going to be the old. So in order for the rebirth to take place, those parts of ourselves that I've just mentioned need to die. By taking off our crown, we release all of those things that have been holding us back. We release the need for external validation. We release the need and the over-identification with our job roles and the titles that other people have given to us or we have given to ourselves. We release the desire to always be in control, and we release the desire to be perceived as strong. We release the fear of being perceived as weak. We release our attachment to social status. We release resistance to change. We release perfectionism. We release fear of failure. We release inflexibility, inflexible thinking. We release the need to cling on to overachievements just to prove our worth. At gate 2, we remove the necklace that symbolises communication. We're removing the chains and the muzzles from our neck, those things that have kept us from speaking our truth. Here, we release anything that is going to prevent us from the rebirth that we want to take place. And this rebirth, it could be starting a new career. It could be setting boundaries that you're going to go by for the rest of the year or for the rest of your life. It could even be releasing a partner that no longer serves you or that you're no longer in love with. It could also be releasing friends that are draining you and that are actually serving no purpose in your life. And with this removal of the necklace, we remove the muzzle from our neck that is preventing us from speaking our truth regarding these things. Now, as I run through this list, I want you to think about what you need to release within your life, or if any of this applies to you. So, as Inanna removed the necklace, she removed the superficial expression of herself. And she embraced her authentic communication. So with the removal of the necklace, which I want you to visualize removing a necklace that is any colour of your choice or represents your mouth and your throat being muzzled and you holding back your voice to suit other people or for fear of your own fear or other people's fear. So as you remove this necklace, we are now going to embrace authentic communication. So visualize removing the necklace from your neck, and we now release gossip. We release dishonesty. Where in your life have you been dishonest about your real feelings? And where have you chosen just to speak about other people because you would rather not look at those things within yourself that actually you need to work on? With the removal of the necklace, we also remove over talking, because there is a time to speak and there's a time to be silent, and it's in those silent times that we often get the most wisdom. So if we want to be light workers, or we want to improve our lives, or we want a rebirth, we're going to need periods of silence so that we can receive the messages that will propel us forward. With the removal of the necklace, we remove passive aggressiveness, fear of confrontation. Have you kept quiet on things that have been so important to you and weighed so heavily on your heart, but you kept quiet because of fear of confrontation? We're going to release that now. We release fear of confrontation. We now release people pleasing. As I mentioned, these things, if they ring true for you, you can say within yourself that I release it. We release suppression of emotions, over reliance on digital communication so that we don't need to communicate in person. And we release the misuse of words to manipulate. And with the removal of this necklace, which is the fake self, the superficial expression, as we remove the necklace, we remove superficial expression and we step into authentic communication. As Inanna moves through gate 4, she's asked to remove the breastplate. Now, the breastplate is at gate 4, but before Inanna goes to gate 4, she goes through gate 3, and she actually removes the double-stranded beads, which is emotional protection, what we value as sacred, what we use to lift our spirits and bring us joy. So this is the removal of desire. So within you, what desires are actually causing you pain that you're holding on to, that you could actually release here, that will help you propel forward. I'd like you to go ahead and release any desires that are actually holding you back now. You can take a breath and on your exhale, release any desires that are no longer serving you. And if you think of something later on, then you can go ahead and take that breath and on your exhale, you just release it, because it may take some time for these things to come through to you. Now this can actually be classed as an initiation, and as you listen to this, you go through this and you do some of these things, the pathway will unfold and you will experience your own initiation if you want to, and that can take days, weeks, months, or even years. But if there's something that you want to kill off so that you can rebirth, if you choose and intend that it's got to a point that you just need to start again, you're willing to burn it down because everything must go, you're going to start again, then accept this initiation, and I declare it will run true for you as long as it is in accordance with the universal laws and the laws of Yahuwah God. And gate 4, this is where Inanna has to remove the breastplate, which is the breastplate of compassion. The breastplate symbolises letting go of guardedness. It's letting go of the walls that we've put up around our heart so that we can allow ourselves to be vulnerable and genuine and compassionate. When we have walls up against our heart, those walls, they block out any compassion. It's very difficult to have compassion when you've got your walls up, because that means you're not allowing your heart to feel. And we release concealing the feelings of the heart now, and we allow ourselves to feel, because we know that we are strong enough to feel the feelings and get through them. We don't have to stay within them. We can let them pass. So with the removal of the breastplate, we now release emotional numbness. We allow ourselves to feel. We release fear of intimacy. We release holding on to grudges. We release judgment of others. We release all past wounds to the heart, because they have helped us to become the person that we are now. Now, when we've experienced wounds to the heart, we may not have known how to deal with them, and so we may have put up some walls. But you're on a spiritual journey, you don't need those walls anymore, so visualize yourself removing the breastplate that you have put on to protect your heart, because we now choose in this rebirth to allow our hearts to experience the human experience fully, uncensored, because we know that's what we came here to do. We now, with the removal of the breastplate, remove self-criticism, lack of empathy, fear of being hurt, avoidance of emotional expression. We release resentment, inability to forgive, and so it is done. We clear all blocks to the heart now through intention and through our desire to rebirth. At gate 5, we remove the ring just as Inanna did. This is our commitment, and this is just symbolic, and it's also temporary, so don't be afraid. But we are going to release the ring of commitment, which symbolises letting go of unhealthy attachments so that we can embrace freedom. What ring have you put onto your finger that has held you down, that has suppressed you, that has stopped you being the full beam of light that you came here to be? What have you committed to that you actually don't want to commit to? Visualise yourself taking off that ring and deciding that you are no longer committed to that, so that you can embrace your freedom. So at gate 5, as we remove the ring, we remove codependency. We now remove fear of being alone. We now remove staying in toxic relationships. We now remove fear of commitment. We now remove attachment to past relationships. And we remove unrealistic relationship ideals. With the removal of the ring, we now release and remove the fear of vulnerability. We remove and release the need for approval in relationship. We release and remove sacrificing ourselves for others, because now we're going to put our own life jacket on and we're going to experience life fully and step into the full glory of who we are, who we always were, and who we came here to be. We release avoidance of intimacy. At gate 6, Inanna is asked to remove the measuring rod and line. This is her ability to be the judge, and we release judgment, and we now accept and embrace acceptance of others. With the removal of the measuring rod and line, we now remove any aspects within our lives that we need to release. We remove self-judgment, judging others, perfectionism, rigid thinking, need to be right, stereotyping, blame, comparison with others, and unrealistic standards. And look how much we've released so far. And then we are finally at gate 7. And this is the removal of the robe of identity. This is shedding the final layers of identity to embrace our true self. Here I would like you to visualize a robe that represents the life that you've been living so far. And we're going to take this robe off so you can put on a new robe. The robe that you want to wear. The robe of your choice, not the robe that was given to you. So it gets gate 7 with the removal of the robe. We now remove any residual aspects of the ego, which is the false self. We remove the false self. We also remove false identities, labels and roles. We release limiting beliefs and fear of the unknown. With the removal of the robe, we release attachment to the past. We release fear of change, and we release resistance to growth and the need for control. And finally, we release illusions of separateness. And there is so much more. And there are nuances that you will have thought of yourself that you need to release. And it may be worth just going over those things again and making a note for yourself So you bring it from the etheric realm into the physical realm by writing down what you choose to release. And you can go through all of those things and choose what you wish to release for your rebirth now. And once you've written them down, you can burn them. So you can write them down on a piece of paper, light a candle, and burn them and give them back to the earth. If you wanted to, in the period and season that we're in, which is always at the moment we're in, May now, but when you listen to this, this will still stand because this is a process of death and rebirth, which is useful in any season of our lives. But for this period of time, once you've written down what you wish to release, burn it. That will bring in the fire energy of transformation, or you can bury it into the ground, and this will bring in the death cycle, so rebirths can take place. So it's up to you, but you want to write down what you release and then release it. And then I would like you to just take a few breaths and just to allow yourself to sit with the information that you've been given today. And I wanted to keep it very short, and we're coming up to an hour now, so just spend the rest of the time that you have to dedicate to this process, writing down what you release and burning it or burying it, and choosing, once you've done that, to just let it go. It's done. And then your rebirth will begin to unfold. And I hope I've given you a lot to think about today, and I hope I've given you some things to journal on